like a buttercup. You're a Barbie doll. Show them all what I'm made of. Strut down the hall. Won't stop till I get enough.
All right, so Bob Uecker, Mr. Baseball. What an interesting guy, right?
Yeah, it's funny because he really wasn't that good at baseball.
No, he always made that very, very clear.
Right, but he became this icon.
Yeah.
And we've got this great article from Fox News that dives into his life and career. It's going to be a fun one.
Yeah. This is going to be a really, really interesting deep dive because there's so much more to him than just, sitting in the booth calling games.
Right, and this is a guy who, served in the Army. He went to WrestleMania.
Yeah, what was that all about?
I know, and then Saturday Night Live, all sorts of stuff. This should be interesting.
Yeah, so let's start at the beginning. I mean, he was born and raised in Milwaukee, and sort of a hometown hero right from the start, it seems like.
Yeah, and that's, I think, an important part of his story.
Okay.
He always stayed connected to his roots.
Yeah.
He played for the Brewers, broadcast for them for over 50 years. That connection to Milwaukee is a big part of who he was.
Yeah, and that's fascinating to me. He makes his MLB debut in 1962. So we're talking, early 60s here, and plays for a bunch of different teams, but never really, set the world on fire as a player, right?
Right.
But there's this one interesting detail. He was on the Cardinals' 1964 World Series winning team.
Yeah.
Which, is pretty amazing.
It is. And I think that kind of speaks to something about Uecker's career. And that is, sometimes it's better to be lucky than good. Right? I mean, he was part of this historic team, even though his individual stats might not have been, Hall of Fame worthy.
Yeah, and I think that probably informed a lot of his self-deprecating humor, too.
Oh, absolutely. I think that's where it comes from.
Yeah.
Being able to laugh at yourself, especially in the face of maybe not achieving the level of success you hoped for as a player.
Yeah, so he gets this experience of being part of a World Series winning team and then transitions to broadcasting. Starts out in Atlanta and then in 1971 lands the gig with the Milwaukee Brewers and stays there for 54 seasons.
It's incredible.
Like 54 seasons. It's
unheard of.
Unheard of.
To stay with one team for that long.
In any sport.
In any profession.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
And, he didn't just do local broadcasts. I mean, he did national broadcasts for ABC and NBC, World Series, League Championship games.
Right. He really became the voice of baseball for a lot of people.
Yeah. And, it's interesting because he even called the Brewers' 1982 World Series loss to the Cardinals for a local Milwaukee station.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
I mean, can you imagine?
That must have been tough.
Yeah. To call the game where your team loses the World Series.
Especially to the Cardinals.
Right.
The team he won a World Series with.
It's just amazing how his career kind of comes full circle in these, interesting ways.
Yeah. It's like it was meant to be.
Yeah. But what I really want to get into is like what made his broadcasting so special.
Yeah.
It wasn't just about, calling the balls and strikes. It was his humor, his personality that really shined through.
Absolutely. And I think, we talk about self-deprecating humor, but it was more than that.
Okay.
It was witty. It was observational. It was like he was sitting there having a beer with you at the ballpark.
Right.
Just chatting about a game.
It's funny you say that because I read somewhere that he used to say he was broadcasting for the guy who took the bus to the game.
Oh, wow. I love that.
Yeah, and stayed for, a beer or two afterward. It wasn't for the, the fancy people in the box seats.
Right. He was talking to the average fan.
Exactly.
The everyday person who just loved baseball.
And I think that's what made him so relatable. It was like he was one of us, just happened to have a microphone.
Right. And I think that's a really important point. He never pretended to be anything he wasn't.
Yeah.
He was just Bob Uecker, flaws and all, and people loved him for it.
So what do you think set him apart from other announcers?
I think it was that authenticity.
Okay.
Like, he wasn't trying to be the smartest guy in the room.
Right.
Or the funniest or the most insightful.
Yeah.
He was just being himself, and that came through in his broadcasts.
And it wasn't mean-spirited humor, right?
No, not at all.
No, it was very...
It was gentle.
Yeah.
It was self-aware.
It was like you were teasing your buddy,
Exactly. And I think that's why people responded to it so well.
Yeah, because it felt real. It wasn't, trying too hard. It was just Bob being Bob.
Yeah.
And I think that's a really important part of his appeal.
It is. And you mentioned earlier all the other things he did, like Saturday Night Live and WrestleMania. Mm-hmm. And I think that speaks to his broader appeal.
Yeah.
He wasn't just a baseball announcer. He was an entertainer.
Yeah.
And a darn good one.
So we've got this guy who's, a natural storyteller. Mm-hmm. He's funny. He's relatable. He's authentic. Mm-hmm. I mean, what's not to love about Bob Uecker?
Right. He was one of a kind.
Yeah. And it's really amazing how he was able to take his kind of a mediocre baseball career and turn it into this, legendary broadcasting career.
An incredible story.
And a cultural phenomenon.
Absolutely.
And we're gonna dive even deeper into all of that.
Yeah, we've got a lot more to cover.
After the break.
Can't wait.
It's amazing to me, though, how he, kind of went beyond just baseball, right? Yeah. We've talked about WrestleMania, Saturday Night Live. What do you think kind of drove him to pursue those opportunities?
I think it speaks to his personality.
Okay.
He wasn't just content with being in the booth. He wanted to entertain. Mm-hmm. He wanted to make people laugh. Mm-hmm. And those platforms gave him a chance to do that on a bigger stage.
And he did movies too.
Oh yeah, Major League.
Yeah, a classic.
Such a classic.
And it's funny because in a lot of those roles he was playing himself, or at least a version of himself.
Right, this sort of bumbling, lovable everyman character.
Yeah, and I think that's part of what made him so endearing to audiences.
Oh, absolutely. He was never afraid to poke fun at himself.
Yeah.
Which I think made him more relatable.
Yeah, it's like he was saying, hey, I'm not perfect, and that's okay.
That's sad.
And people connected with that.
They did.
Especially in a world where everyone's trying to, present this perfect image of themselves.
Right.
Just like, this is me. Take it or leave it.
And people took it.
They sure did.
They loved it.
But speaking of WrestleMania, I mean, that's a pretty wild thing for a baseball announcer to be involved in.
It is, but if you think about it, it kind of makes sense.
Okay, how so?
Well, wrestling is all about entertainment.
Yeah.
It's over the top. It's larger than life, and Uecker fit right in.
And the whole Andre the Giant thing, that was pretty crazy.
Oh, yeah. That's become legendary.
I mean, for a guy who was, kind of a self-proclaimed average guy to be in the ring with Andre the Giant, that's just wild.
It's like something out of a dream.
It is. It really is.
But it speaks to his ability to transcend different worlds.
Yeah.
He could be in the baseball booth. He could be on a movie set. He could be in a wrestling ring.
Yeah.
And he was always entertaining. He was always Bob Uecker.
But, despite all the fame and the success, he never seemed to lose that down-to-earth quality.
No, he always stayed true to himself.
Yeah, like the story about him signing a contract in 2021 just to get health insurance.
I know. Can you believe that?
After all those years with the Brewers, he was still working under handshake agreements.
It's incredible.
But it shows you the kind of trust and respect he had within the organization.
Absolutely.
And, he faced some health challenges later in his career, but he kept broadcasting.
He did.
Even when he had to cut back on games in 2014.
His dedication was amazing.
Yeah, and, he deserved all the accolades he received.
Oh, absolutely.
5-time Wisconsin Sportscaster of the Year. Inducted into the Baseball Hall of Fame in 2011.
That's the ultimate honor.
It is. It really is.
For someone who, always poked fun at his own baseball abilities.
Right.
To be enshrined in Cooperstown.
Yeah, it's just amazing.
It's a testament to his impact on the game.
And I think it goes beyond just the game.
I agree.
I think he was a cultural icon.
He was.
I mean, Mr. Baseball.
That nickname says it all.
Yeah, it really does.
He was more than just an announcer.
Yeah.
He was a symbol of something bigger.
What do you think that something was?
I think it was a simpler time when baseball was more about the joy of the game.
Yeah.
And less about the money and the stats.
Right, like when you could just go to the ballpark, have a beer with your buddies.
And just enjoy the game.
And Uecker embodied that.
He did.
He was the guy you wanted to sit next to.
And listen to his stories.
And laugh along with him.
Exactly.
And I think that's what people really loved about him.
I think you're right.
It was that sense of connection, that feeling that he was one of us.
Yeah.
Even though he was, a famous broadcaster.
He never let it go to his head.
No, he never did.
He was always just Bob.
And I think that's why he'll be remembered.
I think so, too.
Not just for his jokes.
But for who he was as a person.
Yeah, a genuine, down-to-earth guy.
Who just happened to love baseball.
And make us laugh along the way.
Exactly.
You know, it really makes you think, like, what is it about someone like Bob Uecker that makes them so much more than just, you know, a broadcaster or a comedian?
Right, what makes them an icon?
Yeah, like, how do they become woven into the fabric of, you know, our culture?
I think part of it is that authenticity we talked about.
Okay.
Like, he was never putting on an act.
Right.
He was always just himself, and I think people could sense that.
Yeah, he never tried to be anything he wasn't.
Exactly, and there's something really appealing about that.
Especially these days.
Oh, yeah, when everything feels so polished and manufactured.
Right, like everyone's trying to be, you know, Instagram perfect.
I mean, you have Bob Uecker.
Just being Bob.
Just being Bob, and it's refreshing.
It is, it really is.
And I think it reminds us that it's okay to be ourselves.
Yeah.
You know, flaws and all.
And that you don't have to be perfect to be loved.
Exactly.
And I think that's a really powerful message.
It is, and it's something that Uecker embodied throughout his career.
Yeah, he was never afraid to laugh at himself.
Or to poke fun at the game.
And I think that helped people connect with him on a deeper level.
Absolutely, it made him human.
Yeah, and I think that's what we're all looking for, right?
I think so, that connection, that sense of shared humanity.
And, you know, thinking about other icons like Johnny Carson or Mr. Rogers.
Oh, yeah, good examples.
They had that same kind of authenticity.
Mm-hmm. They were genuine.
And they were able to connect with people in a really special way.
They made you feel like you were part of something.
Yeah, like you were part of the family.
Exactly.
And I think Uecker had that same quality.
He did. He brought people together.
And that's a pretty amazing legacy to leave behind.
It is, and it's something that we can all learn from.
So as we kind of wrap up this deep dive into the life and legacy of Bob Uecker, what do you think stands out to you as his most significant contribution?
That's a tough one.
I know, it's a big question.
But I think it's that reminder that humor and humility can be just as powerful as talent and ambition.
That's a good one.
You know, he showed us that it's okay to laugh at ourselves, to not take ourselves too seriously.
And to just enjoy the ride.
Yeah, to find the joy in the everyday moments.
And I think that's a message that we can all take to heart.
Absolutely. And I think it's something that Uecker would want us to do.
To laugh a little more, to connect with each other a little more.
And to never forget the power of being ourselves.
What a fantastic way to remember him.
He was one of a kind.
He really was.
And he'll be missed.
Cheers to Mr. Baseball.
Here's to Bob Uecker.
Sound the alarm. I'm coming up. We'll have a ball. I'm sweet like a buttercup. You're a puppy dog. Show them all what